Hey, Joe, are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm ready.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. I was born for this.
All right, well, let's get to it then. Welcome to the Saturday Sip Along. All right, we are live. How's it going?
Happy Saturday night, everybody.
Hope everybody's having a good Saturday. I am about to head out of town tomorrow morning.
6
Therefore,
o'clock.
therefore, I'm not drinking bourbon tonight. I'm drinking Lipton green tea citrus. And we're going to hit y'all with science tonight.
Yep. Yep. This is going to be an instructional video.
Instructional. Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Educational.
Instruction. Oh, same thing, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to show them how to char a barrel. I'm just going to talk about what it takes. That'd be kind of hard. I don't have the flamethrowers.
Yeah, you take a flamethrower and shoot at that barrel, and that's it.
All right.
You're a char expert.
So we are going to talk about barrel charring and toasting and things like that tonight. Yes, I do have to get up around 6 a.m. and head out about 6:30. I am actually meeting Cindy, Steam Fire and Ice, in Kingsport. We're going to have brunch together at Perkins, and I'm going to give her, because she won the 30 bourbon sample. So I'm going to give her, I poured those today.
That was a great gift.
Standing right here with my lower back hurting by the time I was done. 30 bourbons, that's a lot of bourbon to pour in little 1 ounce bottles. And I even put them in the exact order that I had them on the paper. And I have it's sort of like when you get that box of chocolates and you open it and the lid's got all of what the stuff is in there. That's kind of like this, only it's better because it's bourbon. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Now, have you ever had the bourbon-filled candy, the chocolates?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, they have some. I think my wife got them for me.
Is that a C's one?
No, I don't know who made them, but they come in a, like, of course, a box that's like this big, and there's 5 of them in there, but they're like little, it's all packaging. But yeah, you bite, and they're shaped like bottles, and you can bite the top off of it, and then, or you can just pop it in your mouth, but you're getting chocolate and bourbon.
That's cool.
They were pretty good. Mm. Anyway, you don't have to char a barrel to make a chocolate, but you do have to char the barrel to make bourbon. And so we'll get into that a little bit. So the law says bourbon and even a lot of different whiskeys, have to be aged in a new American oak charred barrel. Doesn't specify what char level, and we'll get into the char levels here in a little bit, but there's a reason they say American oak, because, or most of them use American oak because American white oak variety has more certain compounds in it. It's more prevalent. One of them is the lactones in there, and we'll go through each one. But basically, what you're looking at when you char the barrel, you're changing the chemical makeup of the wood itself. You're also creating a carbon, like a filter there, and that helps remove sulfur and other sulfites and things, impurities. But it also, when you get an alligator char, if you've ever burned a log in a fireplace and you see the little squares all over it, and then you can see fresh wood down in there if it was charred quickly. And that's where the bourbon can go down in those pores and interact with the wood. But what you're doing is bringing out hemicellulose. I believe that's correct. Yes, hemicellulose. And that's where you get your sugars, wood sugars, and you'll get caramels and things like that, depending on the char. Before we get too deep into this, though, I do want to say, Mr. Great Shot, Mike Carrier, Kitty 303, Funky Uncle John, Moose Gal's Corner, welcome. And we're not drinking bourbon tonight because I'm leaving early in the morning. I'm not doing an after party tonight because I do have to hit the road. But the hemicellulose, and depending on the level of char, all of these, like on some of these, the heavier the char, the less interaction it has. And typically the char levels for bourbon are 1 through 4. Now, there's no limit though, except for the fact that you get to a number 12 char and you're going to burn all the way through the barrel, right? Or something like that. But the char is usually between 1/8 of an inch thick and 1/4 inch thick on the inside of the barrel. Now, heavy chars, like Buffalo Trace has experimented with a number 7 char, but the way they do that though is they have these, and it's different with different barrel, because not all distilleries do their own barrels. They'll order from a cooperage and they'll say, hey, make it this char and send these barrels to us. The one I saw in person, and it's freaking hot in there when they're doing it too. I mean, they are blasting heat, but they had barrels rolling down, gravity fed between 2 pipes, and they had a catch, and the barrel would roll against the catch, and then it would line right up with the torch, the flamethrower piece. They would step on a lever and time it. 15 seconds is number 1, 30 seconds number 2, 45 seconds is a number 3, and 1 minute is a number 4 char.
Wow.
So when Buffalo Trace did a number 7 char, you're talking about keep adding 15 seconds on until you get to 7. I mean, you're talking about almost 2 minutes. You're talking about 1 minute and 45 of it. And so that's a heavy char. Then what they would do is they would step on the thing, time it, release, and it would stop the flame, and then they would hit this other lever with their foot, and that barrel would roll on down, and the next barrel would stop on that catch, and they would just bam, bam, one after another.
What a job, huh?
Yeah. The picture that I put on the thumbnail, that was from Jack Daniels. They do a straight down barrel char, and those barrels will be on fire like that, and they can do like 4 or 5 at a time. I think it was 4 of them lined up there on that one, because they do their own barrels. Now, the place that I had seen in the past, they didn't do bourbon. They only made barrels for the distilleries. And all they really offered, I mean, they could do whatever you wanted, but all they did was char. They didn't toast. And, I know toasted oak barrel, like the double oaked and toasted oak and all that's becoming really popular. And there's a reason behind it, because the more char, the heavier char you put on something, and in order to understand it, I have to go through what all the things are. There's hemicellulose, which is your caramel sugary flavor. You've got lignin, which brings out the vanillin or vanilla flavor. You've got tannins in the wood, and a lot of that is and people tend to think of tannins because that's the wine headache you get.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the heavier char, the less influence those tannins are going to have on the bourbon. But they are absolutely necessary for a long maturation process. And then the last one you really get are the lactones. And again, the heavier char, the less interaction that they have. And they bring out more of a woody coconut flavor. But typically we don't really get coconut out of many bourbons, because they usually do like a number 3, number 4 char, and they've pretty much wiped out, the influence that's going to have on the bourbon. But where you do pick it up is when you double oak something, and then you have like a number 3 or 4 char, and then you have a barrel that you've slowly toasted up to just where it starts to get the alligator cracks in it, and then you stop. And then you take the bourbon from like a 2 or 3 year barrel that was like a number 3 or 4 char, and then you move it over into this highly toasted barrel, and that's gonna, because you went slow, it's gonna have more of the coconut sweetness come out. You're gonna have a different variation of vanilla to caramel ratio. You're gonna have more of a sugary flavor than caramel, because you didn't. It's like if you put sugar in a pan and you heat it up, you get caramel. It caramelizes, right?
Right.
And so they stop it a lot of times right before the point of caramelizing the wood sugars and all. And so you can play around with it and all that stuff. But that's why. But the reason that those toasted barrels cost more is because they can blast barrels 1 minute, even on a number 4 char, it's 1 minute per barrel. When you're slow toasting a barrel, it takes a long time, and you're paying for that time. And then, they bring it up slowly. Lori's here. Sheba B, how's it going?
Nice to know.
And, but yeah, that's really, and when I say, sometimes I say, those tannins come out. They had a lower char on the barrel, and they aged it in a high temperature environment. And that's where Garrison Brothers comes in. And because they went a lighter char on the barrel, you're getting more of the tannins are left behind, and it is barely tipping into the lignins, bringing out the vanilla, and you get a more sugar sweetness, but you get those woody oaky notes off those lactones. And because they age it in Texas and the temperature fluctuations go crazy, that bourbon is interacting more with that wood, which is not always necessarily a good thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, when I was talking to the guy from Buffalo Trace, it's the same in all of them. The higher the rack, the higher the barrel, the cheaper the whiskey.
Oh,
because
really?
heat rises. Yep. The higher in the rick house, that's your cheap shit up there on top.
So that's because it gets so hot, right?
Yeah, because heat rises.
Yeah.
And they'll have vent fans and stuff, but it can't keep up. All the stuff way down and even in a basement area, that's your Pappy Van Winkle 23s and stuff down there, right?
Is there still a basement with that stuff in it somewhere?
Or they climate control. Yeah. No, they're making it. They're making it all the time. They're trying to catch back up again.
Yeah, $10,000 a bottle.
Well, that's secondary. You know, I wouldn't pay that. I'd go buy a used Toyota.
Yeah.
You know, so, but no, the I know we talked before about the Pappy bottles and how Stitzel Weller had all of that. This is prior to Buffalo Trace buying it, and it was 60s and 70s, early 70s. Everybody went to neutral spirit drinking, vodka, mixed drinks, you know, martinis, gin, all that. That was the fad. And whiskey became very, very cheap and undesirable. You know, nobody was, you know, except for a few bourbon heads, nobody was really looking for it.
Yeah.
So Stitzel Weller sold off a whole bunch of the Pappy Van Winkle barrels to Crown Royal. And that's where Crown Royal got started, is they would blend Canadian whiskey with the old Pappy Van Winkle.
Oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting stuff, man.
Now, of course, today, Crown Royal is not the same. You know, it's what it used to be. I mean, they've used all that up. But no, it had, but that, you know, that's what tipped Crown Royal off to a good start, you know, and it's a blend of whiskeys. Yeah, then Buffalo Trace bought it, and they have been making, and you know, Weller Special Reserve, the Antique 107, you know, all those, because Weller says the original wheated bourbon, that is Pappy Van Winkle, only, you know, like the 23, it's the same mash. They just age the barrels down in a cooler area, and they'll move the Weller up. Pappy Van Winkle today, the store wanted 1,500 hard pass. Yeah, I mean, it depends on. I mean, some people say Pappy Van Winkle, and they're talking about old Rip Van Winkle, which is not quite as good as like the, you know, the 21, 23 and all that, you know, on the Pappy itself. And I've tried all of them. I've tried the CYPB. I've tried two different Pappies. I can't tell them apart. If you get a one that's around 20 years or 23 years or whatever, you can't hardly tell them apart. And I was drinking them back to back, and they were $20 a pour. And I was there at Evergreen Liquors in New in Louisville.
So is that the highest burn anybody's ever tried? Is it 7?
Mm-mm. Well, like I said, at some point you're going to burn through the barrel,
right?
You know, I mean, but no, and you want some of the natural wood to be left between the alligator char, you know, because it's going in there and pulling out, and that carbon's acting more like a filter, you know, for that. And like I said, it's pulling out. Now, all stills, even column, it doesn't matter whether it's pot still, column still, what. On a pot still, they're made out of copper. And because copper pulls out sulfur, but even on a column still, there's sections of copper on a column still. Now, the difference is a pot still is one where you're doing it by batch, and that's Lincoln Pinch, and he has that 250-gallon still, and he's talking about going up to a 1,200-gallon still. You know,
no, that'd be.
And getting two of them.
I want to see that.
Yeah, that's going to be a big mofo.
Yeah.
Now, in the documentary film, you can see his 250-gallon still right behind, you know, when I was interviewing him. So it's just not very tall. The other one's a lot taller, you know.
Yeah, that's going to be nice.
Oh, yeah. And he's going to fit two of them in there. And then he has to make his vats bigger, but he's going to get rid of like the bottling and the grain storage and all. They're going to move that. Because he said we may have to move our bottling out of the warehouse. Because when we did the tour, the guy sitting way back in the corner was sitting there handwriting every single bottle.
So they've already moved it out.
No, it was there.
Oh.
He said when they expand, they may have to move the bottling out. But yeah, I can tell you when I was drinking, I like CYPB. It's the Weller. I like it way better than Antique 107. But if you look on the aftermarket pricing on it, it is 6-7 times as much as Antique 107. But I mean, I don't mind Weller, the green label. It's just I hate paying more than $30 for it because that's about what it's freaking worth, you know. And people think, oh, I'm gonna get, the Weller, Weller, and you can go down to Georgia and get it for $20-something, for a 750. Because I got a big double barrel, the Magnum bottle for like $40, so it's not worth much more than $20-something. Now, when you get up into the Pappies, it does have a very silky mouthfeel, and you can tell it's well aged, but it's still a wheated bourbon, and we've had better stuff as far as flavor profile and notes go. And, but barrel char, more than the grain, I think barrel char is like one of the top, using really good water and having a good char, because you have to be 51% or more corn. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the 100% corn bourbon. I've just never found one I really like. I don't even like a super high corn bourbon.
So what's an example of 100?
Hudson Baby bourbon. Okay. And I know that Evan Williams is a high corn. But corn, even though corn is sweet, like corn on the cob, has a sweetness to it, corn does not attribute, in my opinion, good sugars to a bourbon. Now, that's my opinion. I'll drink it all night if that's all I got. But
that'll never be all you have. So.
No. Well, if I'm out, camping or something, and oops, I brought Evan Williams. Well, I'm gonna drink it because that's all.
Now let's go back to the liquor store. It's 20 miles back. Well, we'll grab something else. No.
But no, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just not my preference. So when you start getting more than 65% corn, I tend to start shying away from it. I like a combination of grain, and I also like more malted barley in it. I know Lincoln Pinch has higher than 10% malted barley in there, and there's others that have like double malted, like they'll have 2 different types of barley, and you add them together, and it's like 30%. But malted barley is good, and it brings out a nutty flavor. It brings out some earthiness to it. I know that Rabbit Hole has some that's like double malted barley in the mix. And Rabbit Hole also toasts their barrels. They don't blast char them, but they do get an alligator char because by law it has to be a charred barrel. Now you toast it long enough and it's going to char. But the reason Rabbit Hole said that they do it that way is because they like the way it changes the molecular structure and what it adds. They think it adds different flavors, and I agree. If you change something like real fast or you do it over time, you're changing the complexity.
So are they more expensive because they're toasted?
Yeah, and there's 2 reasons Rabbit Hole's so expensive. One is they toast their barrels to a char. The second reason is they don't barrel them very high proof. So when you look at the bourbon law, you can distill at 160 proof, no higher, and you can't barrel at a higher than 125 proof. But you can get 130 plus proof barrel because water soaks into the wood, leaving the alcohol behind. It increases the alcohol concentration. But what Rabbit Hole does is they distill and they proof it down prior to barreling, and they barrel it at close to what they want the bottle to be.
Oh, wow.
So, that's what you're getting there is non-watered down juice after the aging process ends. They may add it, they may tweak it a little with a little bit of water, but they try to keep that as little as possible. And that's why the flavors are so in your face with Rabbit Hole, because you're getting more, well, it's the toasting instead of charring, and you're drinking more of a barrel proof, even though it's only 100 proof or whatever, or 90 something proof. It's just they didn't barrel it; they barreled it at 95 proof. And what you do to the White Dog really doesn't impact that much, because if you've never tried White Dog before, it's not very good, because most of what we attribute flavor to in the bourbon is coming out of that hemicellulose, the tannins, the lignins, and all that from the wood. But it does have an impact because they're going to interact different, and it's going to impart different flavors depending on the grain count. So somebody who really wants to make a spicy rye, and rye, you can do a charred barrel there too. Lower the char so that it brings out more of the spice notes. Or I have that backwards. I think the higher the char on the lignins will bring out spice. So higher char, of spicy rye, because there's all these different types of rye, you can get.
Well, you can just throw some Carolina Reapers in there. That'll spice it up.
Well, it's different spice. So, but that's where you're getting, like Christmas spices and things like that, cinnamon and, and there's different, just like, it's not as prevalent as with beer and hops, right? You can get different hop varieties, and one of them tastes like banana and the other one tastes like mango, Yeah. But there's different variations of rye that can impart more black pepper and all spicy notes and things like that. And then you can play with the barrel char, and it's even going to increase that even more.
So water brings down the proof and brings down the price.
Well, okay, so
essentially,
yeah, I mean, a barrel has so many gallons in it, right? And these are all standard barrels, and it doesn't matter what your steel is, you're barreling in the same size barrel everybody's barreling in, and you only have so many gallons of juice, and you're going to lose some to absorption and evaporation. If you distill at 160 proof, and then you cut it down with water until you're at 125 proof, and you fill that barrel up, no matter what you lose in velocity, or no, capacity, inside or whatever, you're going to lose some. Then when you dump it, you can add water to bring it down to 80 proof. Well, yeah, you're going to have a lot more bottles than if you
sell, right.
And that's why cask strength is high, because they're now, I will say, there's people that get around it, and there's some that do this. And I've had a conversation with a couple other bourbon guys who have worked in the industry. And I've never worked at a distillery. I just interview them and talk to them a lot. And they give me the inside scoop. But a couple of guys have worked in a couple of distilleries before that I've talked to. And they said they would go along during the aging and add water to the barrels as the evaporation was occurring. And they could still call it cask strength when it came out, because they didn't blend it. They didn't cut it with water after it came out of the barrel.
Oh, cool.
So, but that's kind of cheating, and it's going to show, eventually in your product, but
So would it show in the taste?
Oh yeah.
The notes?
Well, that, and when bourbon ages for the appropriate amount of time in the right environment, I know I talk about attenuation around the edge of the glass and all. And this only works, folks, with crystal, right? It works better with crystal. You can see it a little on glass, but all of these glasses back here are a crystal. And when you tilt that bourbon over and you look at that edge, and it's got this like clear, glassy, like real sharp, defined edge around it, that's a good aged bourbon. Young bourbons don't do that. They're kind of flat all the way across. The coloration and all, it's just kind of flat. And when you start adding water to a barrel, part of that is not aging as long in there, right? Or you're diluting it down, and you're not going to get that good glassy edge if you do it too much. Steam, fire, and ice. What's going on?
Steam, fire, and ice.
And but but to go back through, we tend to get a lot of vanilla and caramel, and then we get some apple notes sometimes. And some of that is the interaction of the sugars to the grains, depending on and wheat is one that will bring out more of the fruity notes and stuff. Depending on the char of the barrel and the method used to char the barrel and all that, it can be more pronounced or less pronounced. But yeah, all of this stuff is there's a million different factors, and people like in Scotland, it's a superior product, all that. No, all bourbon's the same. Well, you just haven't drank enough of it. It's completely not all the same. For me, I think I do like it, but a single malt Scotch, all that is, they're using 100% malted barley. And, but Scotch and to make butterscotch, you put butter and scotch, you can make butterscotch. And, my wife made a butterscotch cake or pie or something one time. And she said, I need some scotch to make this, but I only need a little bit of it. And I said, well, if you only need a little bit, then let me get a decent bottle of scotch. When I say decent, I mean like maybe $70-$80. I'm not going to go, spend $350 on a whatever. But I'll get
buy Pappy's.
I'll get a Dalmore 12 or something, for like $70 or something. But we used it because she only used like a half cup or whatever, and we had the rest of it to enjoy. And I like scotch here and there. I'm not willing to get into, my shelf wouldn't be near this full. I do have some bottles up there that cost several $100s, but not very many. Most of these are under $100, and some of them are even sub $50, like $47, $48 or whatever, but you start getting into collecting a lot of scotch and the price is going to go through the roof. And then I don't really care for the peated, like the Lafroigs and stuff like that. With what they're doing there is they're drying the malted barley they're stopping that malting process with peat smoke.
One that tastes like an ashtray.
Yeah, but then that smoke flavor, it smokes up the malted barley, and then when they do the distillation process, that smoke is coming out. That smoky flavor is coming out. But, I told you it was going to take more than 30 minutes to get through this.
It took more than 30 minutes to get through that.
And we're not quite.
And that's right. He told me.
Yeah. So we have covered. Okay. So the law. This is one last thing I wanted to cover on this topic. The law says whiskey, bourbon, all that, but bourbon specifically has to be aged in new charred oak barrels, and it has to be made in the United States. It does not say it has to be American oak, but it does have to be made in the United States. But American white oak has all of these molecular structures that the folks, the distilleries and all, recognize American white oak as like the superior oak for that, because of the amount of different things in it, and the way that when you char it, it reduces the impact of the tannins. The heavier the char, and it has those what was it, lactones in there. Yeah. So, but I know I brushed on this earlier about toasting. The reason a lot of them, like they say, double oaked, like Woodford Reserve, because when they put it in the second oak, it's not charred. It's just toasted. And they don't even toast it until it turns black. They toast it to it's really, really dark brown. and that's not legal. So they have to age it in a charred barrel, and then they put it to finish it. And that's why they call it double oaked, because they're legally making a bourbon, Woodford Reserve, and then they take the exact same juice and they put it in a toasted barrel that's not a legal char. And then you get darker. Well, because remember, the higher the char, the less impact the tannins have, the less impact the lactones have. The higher the char, the more impact.
More chance you get a headache.
Well, no. Tannins are in wine. That's what gives you a headache. And wine barrels are not charred; they're toasted, right? All wine barrels are they're toasted. But the tannins in bourbon, bitter. Just think bitter wood, like you're chewing on a stick, right? And that kind of comes through, and that's wood, and you have to chemically, molecularly change the composition, because if you just grab even a white oak stick and start chewing on it, it's not going to taste sweet. But the whiskey moving in and out of the and that chemical change that goes through with charring and toasting, it will bring out those wood sugars, but you're not going to get it if you just chew on a stick.
You're not?
No.
Okay, I got one more question.
Okay.
What's the difference between a single malt Scotch and a double malt Scotch?
What I do know is a single malt Scotch is single. It's a malted barley, and that's the only grain. So it's single malt. I would say I'm talking outside of my head here because I'm not a Scotch enthusiast, but they probably use two different types of malted barley.
Okay.
Because there's
good for me.
There's one, and some of it may be a blend. But the law is loose around that. Because I know Monkey Shoulder is a blend of Scotch whiskeys. It's supposed to be a blend of single malt Scotch whiskeys, but they can't call it a single malt because it's got three different whiskeys in it, So, but I know that I forget which one now. One of the rabbit holes has two different types of malted barley in it. So it's got the corn, the wheat, and two types of malted barley, and maybe a little rye.
So the reason I asked that question is I got a friend in California that's all he would drink is double malt Scotch.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bourbon guy. I'm not a Scotch guy. So I was checking the chat to see if somebody wanted to jump in and be like, "Hey, here's what it means."
Yeah, me too.
But we could Google it, but we're not.
Yeah, we if we think about it, we'll have the answer for you next time.
Yeah. So the Elijah Craig toasted, and there's a Basil Hayden's toasted. Toasted is becoming very popular, and it's because it's almost like a fad right now, with the distilleries and all, and they put it out limited production because it takes them a lot longer to toast a barrel. They're having to stop a production line to toast a barrel instead of, and they're trying to figure out the exact, what temperature do I bring this to for how long? Because charring's been around forever, and back in the old day, they used to build a fire. And this is one method they used to use, and they would take the barrel and they would turn it upside down and put it over the fire. And of course, it starts trying to put the fire out immediately, but it would have a hole in the side of it, and it took a lot longer. But today they can just blast them, and so that's, they got it down to an art now.
Yeah, if you get a chance, check that out on YouTube. It's pretty fascinating the way they blast those barrels like that. Yeah, how they just kind of roll into place.
Well, some of them, that one I saw in person was a side blast, and then they would roll on down, and then they would go down there and tip up, and then they would hit them with air. So, they would put the fire out when they wanted, but they keep burning for a little bit, but they they can't get enough, very much oxygen. So they kind of go out pretty quick. But yeah, like I said, Jack Daniels, they blast straight down at them. Boom.
Yeah. The one I saw was sideways too.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
I mean, it doesn't really matter how you do
it. Doesn't. No, it's just
yeah. But yeah, they like I said, most distilleries they're not big enough to have their own barrel charring. But even the ones like Jack Daniels and all that and Buffalo Trace, I think they char their own barrels. They have the charring stuff. They can take liberty and do whatever they want, but most of them just order them from places. But what I've learned is some of those places, those barrel makers and all, they're starting to introduce more of a toasting option for folks. And so you don't have to be Heaven Hill or Elijah Craig, or not Elijah Craig is Heaven Hill. You don't have to be Heaven Hill, Buffalo Trace, or Jack Daniels to be able to participate, but it's a different setup. It's like an oven setup. You've got a hole that's going to radiate heat and not blast fire. And then you just set the barrel over the hole and let it ease up to temp.
So we had to buy a few barrels and get a flamethrower and
go to town.
We can take turns, right?
Yeah, I've been wanting to get one of those anyway. Those you hook to the bottle. It's the infrared thing, and you can like reverse sear your steaks and stuff. Make creme brulee and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I've been thinking about getting one of those little torches, but now I don't want to get into all that. But and that's another thing too, is that people order these barrels, these little mini barrels off of Amazon and all that. And I've seen people, they say, yeah, man, I got this. And yeah, you fill it with water because it's dry, right? And you fill it with water and then you let the wood expand until the water stops leaking. Then you immediately pour all the water out and then you pour whiskey into it. I'm like, well, okay, but the only problem with that, and you think you're double aging your, what you bought from the store, but you don't have a char in there. So you don't have any of this molecular stuff going on that you need to impart all these flavors. And so you're just making it maybe a little darker. Maybe. It's like, but it's already gone through. So you're not hurting yourself by doing that. I don't think it's imparting anything.
Yeah. And you're kind of wasting your money.
Yeah. What time?
And time. Yeah. Yeah, back in the day, it was beer.
Now, if you can get a barrel, or if you could take the end cap off of it and char the inside of it, and then put the end cap back on, and have a charred mini barrel, you could probably do what you wanted with your bourbons and maybe experiment with a regular Woodford, and then see if you can match the double oak or whatever.
Hey, you get a little teeny flamethrower.
Yeah, and it's like in this room right here, it's around 69, 70 degrees in here. That would be a perfect environment. And it doesn't change in here. It's AC controlled. You could age something for a really long time. But do you want to wait that long?
Not at all.
No. But I would if I were going to do something like that, I would want to get some White Dog I want the Weller White Dog and put it into, because the reason I say that is it's never been aged inappropriately, because the Weller green label that they put in barrels and put way up high on the rick, that's messing them up right off the bat. I mean, they're getting a desired result that they want, but you can't age that up there for like 2.5 years and then bring it down to the basement. You got to start down there, with the aging process, because you're going to have a different product, because now you've had a rapid age that now you're bringing down to slow age. It's going to have different notes to it. So I would want to get the Weller White Dog get my little charred barrel, and figure out what char they use, for it, and try to duplicate that with my little mini barrel and pour a green label, the white dog, the white dog, the same mash that's the Weller special reserve that goes all the way up through Pappy, and put it directly into that barrel, and then just set a timer on it and see, but
I don't think they have a timer that long.
that's a lot of years. That's a lot of years to wait to see if it's gonna turn out the same, But
Hey Siri, set a timer for December 12th. Let's see, 2031, 2131.
I'll be on my deathbed and be like, that little barrel in there, don't lose it.
Don't sell that at the estate sale.
Yeah, keep it. Get yourself a empty Pappy bottle and you can fill it.
Yeah.
But there's just there is no easy way to reproduce something that went through that process.
Time machine.
Yeah. I wish I could go back. Well, I was born in '69, so they now they did back way a long time ago. We could buy whatever we wanted from the store. I'd go down there on my bicycle and I'd get my dad to, whatever he wanted, and they would sell it to me. And then the law changed, but I still don't think they would have sold Pappy Van Winkle to a 5-year-old, but maybe, I wish I
maybe
could
7 or 8
go back when they were, because there was one time when they couldn't give the stuff away hardly. And could you imagine having like cases and cases just on the
in
cheap?
your basement? Oh my God.
And just have them,
I
and
just happen to have some of this shit here. How much?
but I mean, still though, we're talking about all these years later,
Yeah.
And you would have had to have waited at least 30 years or so, before it would start coming up in price. And now it's just crazy, what you can get. And, and I do know that there's a lot of folks in these boards, and the ABC boards fight hard to keep ABC, the state ran stuff around. But more and more stuff's coming out now about how the leftovers from the lottery. Why were there leftovers? That's not leftovers. You didn't lotto them off. And they have dibs on it, and they get it at cost. And most of those suckers are turning around on the aftermarket and just getting rid of them.
Yeah.
And because it's too tempting for somebody to spend $250 ish, because I think it's 237 or something like that, whatever MSRP is on a Pappy 23, and maybe 268. I forget now, but it's there's an MSRP on it, and that's what we pay is MSRP with a state rand with a markup, but the MSRP has a markup in it already. But that's what we pay here if you can find it on the shelf. And if they lottery, and you have to have a valid driver's license in the state to enter the lottery, and you can do it online and all that. Never won one. But I would rush to go pick it. I'd drive wherever in the state to go pick up the bottle and happily give them my $300 and come home. But the one thing they do before you leave the store with these things is they break the seal.
Really?
Yep. They cut so you watch them do it, but most of them on the lottery, they'll cut the seal on both sides of the cap, because and they won't let you film it or anything. But people have to take your word for it. Look, I won this in the lottery. I paid for it. I watched them break the seal, because people are going to think that
so you could sell it.
Yeah, they're going to think I've refilled it with something subpar, and I'm trying to get $8,000, $10,000 for crappy juice. But I wouldn't sell it anyway. I
didn't want you to do that. I was going to let it sit for another 23 years. So,
but anyone who knows it, who's ever had it or anything close to it, you'll know it's real.
Next time you go to that bar, I want to go with you, so I can get one of those $20.
Yeah. What I'm going to do, because I asked him the last time I was there, is I said, can you sell me the rest of that bottle up there? Because, I said, do you have another bottle of it back there? Yeah. So I went through and I calculated how many ounces and all that for 750 milliliters. It was going to cost about, I think, 900 something bucks, or whatever. And I forget what it was now, but I said, hey, can I just get nope? And I said, okay, well, can you, that bottle there? Nope. And so they won't let you have the bottle, and that's the thing. And finally I said, well, what if I came in here with, say, a 6 ounce container and I pay you for the ounce and you measure it and pour it in the little snifter glass, and I take the snifter glass and pour it over in there, and then I'll order another one. He goes, yeah, you can do whatever you want with it once we. But
as soon as it's across the bar, whatever you want to do with it, you can do it.
Yeah, but we're not going to give you the bottle. We're not going to measure the ounces for you. We're not going to, because what I wanted him to do is just set up a bunch of snifters, pour it all out till the bottle's gone. And even if you've got like one that's not quite there, I'll give you the full price. Just pour it all back in and sell me the bottle for whatever that costs. But they wouldn't do it. Yeah. So, but they're paying like the $2 whatever for it there, and they're getting a huge markup.
Yeah, too bad they wouldn't do it though.
Yeah, Mr.
You can't trust people.
They sure don't deliver here. Bring a mason jar. Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing the hip flask, 6 ounce, because you're talking about $20 an ounce. And you're not going to have the bottle anyway. But and they will let you film it there though.
Oh, they will.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was doing like taking pictures and stuff and all that. And I would just film myself doing it and say, look, this is it. This is the bottle. He's pouring my shot. I'm pouring it in here. I have it labeled Pappy, whatever. And that way I could show y'all that, yeah, that's what this is. And of course, if I had something like that, that would be one of the primo ounces I would put in the 30 bourbon sampler, type thing. But for having only 6 ounces of it, I'm going to drink at least 1 ounce myself. But I'll drink one there, But I have a pretty good memory when it comes to bourbon. Once I've had it, I can tell you a lot about the notes and stuff from, say, I don't know, Russell's Reserve and Russell's Reserve 10 and what the difference is, and the Wild Turkey 101. And I recognize, Beam Suntory stuff and all of that. But yeah, it was good.
Cool.
Yeah, it was really, really good. But yeah, that's about it for tonight. I know we're at 8:05 right here. If anybody has any questions though, if I don't know it, I'll find out. I'll figure it out. But other than that, no after party tonight. Again, I'm going to get up early, and I was packing the trunk when you came over. So I've got to get back and finish packing the car up so I can head out in the morning. But I am bringing all of my equipment. So all of these lights, cameras, all that stuff. And I'm going to do some recording while I'm out. So you can be watching for some of that stuff to post. If they'll let me, I'm sure they'll let me film in some of these liquor stores and all. They won't here, but they're private. And so the one lady, I think she's already excited about me coming anyway. She's been talking to Big Daddy H a little bit. And so, yeah, I'll be visiting that. And I'm not going to disrupt business, by setting up all of this crap. But I am bringing all this because I am setting up at Jimmy's house. So Ojisan's World, Jimmy and Marcedale, I'll be at their house in Arkansas next Thursday. And so the Thursday giveaway show will be at their house. And then I'll take my handy dandy notebook with me, and I'll make sure I get all the entries down and all that. And we'll go from there. No Saturday sip along next week. And for the record, I'm thinking about moving Saturday sip along to Sunday sip along.
Okay.
The reason I'm thinking about doing that, I mean, we don't have to right now, but if we do move it, next week may be an option, but it's going to eliminate after parties after the Saturday sip along. I'm not going to be able to do them because I get hammered at work Monday through Thursday. And when I say hammered, I don't mean drunk.
We can't do that though. God won't let me drink on Sunday.
Really? Is that right?
Yeah.
He will me. I don't I got a special pass. But now if we do,
you gotta give me one of those, okay?
Yeah. If we do it on Sunday, we can do it earlier.
Yeah.
We can move back to maybe the 6:15 time slot.
Okay.
And then do it that way, and maybe a short after party or something, but I'm the reason I want to move it though is because if I go out of town, I can't, like if I want to take my camper trailer on Friday after work and I want to go and stay Friday night and Saturday night and then break down and come home, I can't do that with the show in the way, so we either have to go live from out there, which crappy internet, or we have to wait till Sunday. And with fall coming, it's going to start cooling off outside. The weather's going to get better. Gas prices are starting to come down a little bit.
They are, yeah.
So I'm itching to get some use out of the camper,
Paid $352 today.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome. I know.
And so, yeah, we'll let you know though when we decide to make the change. But guys, thanks for coming, and we're going to go ahead and end this.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yep.